something called a consensus for the use of botulinum toxin, which was published in 2004. It's easily available on the net, the whole article. So the Caruthers, who kind of were the pioneers in Botox and discovered the uses of botulinum for cosmetic and spasms, have a bunch of plastic surgeons, oculoplastic surgeons, dermatologists met and made this consensus, which takes us through all this. So one of the things is that when you do reconstitute it, even if you shake it, don't worry. Even if you get bubbles, it does not decrease the potency actually. It's fine to do it. It's just that the bubbles come, you need to settle down so that when you're aspirating. And just another small thing is that I personally do is once I've injected, I remove the 24 gauge needle. The hub of all these needles hold about 0.4 ml of the saline. So even when I'm aspirating my Botox, I don't want it to be diluted further with that 0.5. So I just introduce a new needle and then aspirate. And again, the consensus says you can use it to 6 weeks officially. So don't worry about it. And well, honestly, I've pushed it to 3 months. Well, yeah. No, so not for cosmetic, but I've used it for small spasms, eyelid myokymias. We're just giving 2 to 4 units. So yeah, but 6 weeks you can easily keep it. It's a consensus-driven thing, so it's approved and tried and tested.
We had the paper with Professor Shom and myself where we had tested
Yes,
for
that's
up to 6 weeks, and it is as effective as day one. Just to add a couple of things, they say that, like she rightly mentioned, you shouldn't be injecting into the bottle for two things. One is that the molecule itself, when unreconstituted, is very fragile, so you don't want a high velocity stream of saline to be hitting it, to be hitting clumps of that, which is why it was rightly shown in the video, a 24 gauge needle has to be used. The narrower the needle, the more force with which it will pass through, especially when you inject. So if you were by chance reconstituting with a 27 gauge or a 26 gauge and injecting, that would actually make the reconstituted solution less efficacious than you would get a solution if it was reconstituted with 24 gauge. Right. So I'll talk about the functional indications first, and then we'll go to the cosmetic indications. These are Dr. Milind Naik's slides. So basically, to simplify it, we could divide the face into four areas of involvement where you would see spasms. These spasms are muscular spasms, but clinically you would see it as the skin flickering over it. At the same time, the affected areas or the muscles affected would be contracted, and therefore when the orbicularis oculi gets involved and you see a spasm or a contraction, the action of the muscle is resultant seen, which means closure of the eyelid. So if it involves only one quadrant of the face, which means only the orbicularis of one half of the face is involved, that is typically called orbicularis myokymia. When both sides are involved, which means both the eyelids are autonomously, involuntarily spasming, it is benign essential blepharospasm, which many of us consider to be a misnomer because it can be so debilitating that it is no longer benign because it affects the lifestyle of the patient. If only one side of the face is involved in spasming, which could be again of varying intensities, you would have the entire forehead, the orbicularis, the zygomaticus, the levator nasi, the nasalis, the orbicularis oris, the mentalis, the depressors of the mouth, all of them could be involved, and you could see very severe spasms, or sometimes only selected muscles are involved and you don't see very prominent spasming. Sometimes the entire face is involved, as would be the case in the patient that we are demonstrating, which is called Meek syndrome or orofacial tics, as it is commonly known as. This is how a patient would be seen with hemifacial spasm. You can see that the orbicularis is contracting, the orbicularis oculi and the orbicularis oris with the mentalis and the zygomaticus, all of them contracting, causing that half of the face to appear in spasm. The post-Botox, all those muscles are relaxing. and then you see that it is effective. A quick note, whenever you encounter a patient with hemifacial spasm for the first time, it is best to investigate them with imaging of the brain, a magnetic MRI or an MRA. MR angiography has to be done primarily to rule out a vascular loop at the exit of the seventh nerve from the brainstem. Because if there is a vascular loop that is compressing the seventh nerve, there you may discuss the option of the patient getting a neurosurgical opinion and intervention also done, where they place a Teflon piece between the nerve and the muscle, the blood vessel, to separate the contact, which in some cases can relieve the spasm. You can still inject at the first visit, but you'd always ask them to follow up with the reports. So where do we inject? Typically in a patient who has only ocular symptoms and little minimal contraction of the face, these are the sites that you would inject. These are areas where no more than 2 units need to be injected. So if you see the sites, this is just above the eyebrow, but within a centimeter of the brow, which means that you are injecting in the orbital portion of the orbicularis oculi. 2 points over there, 2 points over the eyelid. This is the preseptal orbicularis that is being injected, not the pretarsal. It is the pretarsal orbicularis where you're injecting and not the preseptal. The preseptal portion is in very close relation with the levator muscle, and there is a good chance that if you go higher and inject further up on the eyelid, that it may diffuse into the levator, which is the elevator of the eyelid, and as a result you will have drooping or ptosis. The raphe or the lateral edge of the orbicularis can also be injected here. So, and then if involved, then the zygomaticus, the levator, and the depressor anguli. This is the mentalis where it can be injected, depending on the areas involved and the complaints of the patient. Now, benign essential blepharospasm is typically only periocular injections. Now, this is a patient, you can see, is unable to initiate spontaneous opening of the eye, and also there is involuntary closure of the eyelid. A lot of patients have also a component of apraxia of eyelid opening seen in conjunction with this. You would see that sometimes these patients very often get misdiagnosed for dry eye, also because they have coexisting ocular surface issues. Post-Botox, the improvement is significant. This is another patient with benign essential blepharospasm. So where do you inject in this? Very similar to where you would inject in the hemifacial spasms. Some clinicians like to inject at a central, like me, I also like to inject a central point over here. If titrated well, they do not cause any lid retraction or ptosis at these sites. But yeah, typically you would want to inject only at the medial and lateral end to avoid any eyelid contour issues. And those are the functional indications of the Botox, of botulinum toxin. Now quickly we'll go through our cosmetic indications before we move on to the live demo. So this is how the patient. Now if you see the forehead muscles, there are a lot of muscles involved in animating the forehead. You have a large rectangular muscle which is in between on the bridge of the nose, in between the 2 eyes, called the procerus. Just lateral to that you have the depressor supercilii. When the procerus contracts, it pulls the eyebrows down, and the depressor contracts, it pulls the medial ends of the eyebrows down, which means it's a depressor of the forehead or the eyebrows. Similarly, as you go superiorly and laterally, you will see the corrugators. These 2 corrugator muscles, they can be as a single band with a head and a tail, or sometimes you can see a superficial head and a deep head. And these muscles are also responsible for medial movement of the eyebrow and depressing the eyebrows. So essentially, when someone has frown lines, which means the deep lines in between the 2 the 2 eyebrows, those are created by the actions of these muscles. Every muscle or set of muscles has an opposing set of muscles as well, in which case it's the forehead elevator which has the opposite effect, which means the frontalis, this large bilobed sheet or sheet-like muscle is the frontalis, which on contraction causes the eyebrows to go up. So these are the two muscles that are antagonists to each other. Also, another layer, which means superficial to the layer of the corrugators and the depressor muscle, is the circular muscle, which is orbicularis oculi, which has three portions: the orbital, the preseptal, and the pretarsal. Preseptal, pretarsal are touched. Pretarsal is injected only in the facial spasms, but in reshaping of the eyebrow or the forehead, we can inject into the in the orbital portion of the orbicularis. That much of anatomy is important to know what you are going to inject. So here you have the patient without any dynamic movement of the forehead, but here she's frowning, and she has a very prominent brow, frown line. So here we are marking the procerus here. Now here, this is the corrugator. Here what you can ask the patient to do is frown. And when she's frowning, you pinch the muscle so you know where you are going to exactly inject. And then because in her case it is very severe, I've chosen to inject at 2 points, superficial, the medial and the lateral point. Observe the technique. I'm resting my left hand over that. I place the syringe and then go parallel and inject. Injecting 2.5 units at each of these sites. Again, in the corrugators, you go parallel and pinch the muscle as I inject. Pinching helps you localize the muscle, and going in parallel also helps to reduce the diffusion area. So you are pinching it so that the toxin gets accumulated only in that area. There will be a little bit of bleeding and oozing, which can be dabbed and cleaned. Again, observe the muscle is being pinched, and go in parallel and inject. Also, you can go in deep, because as you pinch and bunch it up, the height of that muscle gets elevated. The same thing is being done, 2.5 units at these sites. Now, the reason why I say you should be parallel or only a little angulated is if you inject here, if you're parallel, the site of entry on the skin and the final exit point of the toxin in the muscle are close to each other. But if you go extremely oblique, your site of entry at the skin where you think you want to inject, but where you actually end up injecting are different. So you don't want to be very parallel to the patient's surface. Instead, you want to be parallel to the ground. So this is the patient when frowning before, and that is the patient when frowning after. The forehead lines have gone completely. You don't want to over-treat such that the forehead becomes completely static. Now here we are going to treat the forehead lines, the glabellar lines. What we are doing is injecting at 5 points in 2 rows. So here you can see she has a lot of prominent lines or wrinkles or glabellar lines that are seen when she elevates her brow. So 2 points on this side. I do not go any point in the lateral, any point lateral to the lateral third of the eyebrow is a no-go area. 2 points here, 2 points here, and a central large area. Again, any point above the lateral third of the eyebrow is a no-go area. You do not want to inject here, because that can affect the position of this eyebrow also. Again, 2 units or 1.5 units at each of these sites. The Allergan company insert tells you to inject at 5 points, 4 units at each place, which is 20 units. I find people with very prominent forehead lines can do better when 2 or 2.5 units are injected in 2 rows, so that the area of that is treated is larger, and you don't have isolated areas where you see some wrinkling lines to be seen. You don't want to go bone deep. Also, you don't want to hit the bone and then inject, because sometimes you can then inject into the periosteum, and those injections are very, very painful. And the Prelox cream acts only on the superficial skin, dermis, epidermis level, maybe the muscle. You will see tiny blebs being raised as you inject, and that is what you look out for. Some amount of it, you don't want to inject as you come out, because the molecule is precious. You don't want to waste the molecule. And following that, here you can see the forehead lines when she elevates her eyebrows. They are very prominent, whereas here she's doing the same. The eyebrows are still moving. You don't want to over-treat such that the eyebrows don't move up, but the eyebrows are moving. She's able to express surprise, but the cosmetic result that we want, which is absence of wrinkles, is being seen here. Red flag, stay away from the orbital rim. We noticed that the injections were at least 1 to 1.5 centimeter above the orbital rim. That is because that's the orbicularis that is there. Orbicularis is a protractor or a closer of the eyelid. Also, if you go close to the rim, it can easily diffuse down if not injected well. Again, going and affecting the levator muscle, which will cause ptosis. Ptosis that you've seen there. Spock deformity is when you've injected, over-treated the medial area such that the lateral tail goes up. So that can be treated well by, if you give over here and then treat the lateral frontalis, which will then balance the position, the shape of the eyelid. Quickly go through this video. These are crow's feet. Or Dr. Savri, do you want to just directly inject and demonstrate that time? We should start there? Yeah. So, all right. So I'll just read the video run. It's a 1.5 minute only. You ask the patient to smile, thereby making the crow's feet very prominent. These are called lateral rhytids, or the wrinkles seen at the angle of the eye. This is mainly due to the bunching of the orbicularis oculi fibers and the redundant skin over, which causes the wrinkles to appear. The bony landmark is the orbital rim. You do not want to inject within the orbital rim. Instead, you want to inject at least 0.5 centimeter outside the orbital rim. And again, the dosage, there is no one fixed hard and fast rule for dosage or the number of sites. Now, this dermatologist this is the Allergan instructional video that I'm showing. The previous video was my own. The Allergan instructional video says that you need to inject 2.5 to 5 units at 3 points. Depending on the severity of the lateral rhytids, you may choose to inject lesser or more as long as you treat them effectively and symmetrically. Again, raising a small bleb. And here you see that the injector is using a tuberculin syringe, which is pre-mounted. We sometimes prefer a 1 cc syringe. This is an insulin syringe, I'm sorry. Sometimes we prefer a tuberculin syringe with a 30 gauge needle. A 30 gauge needle is very commonly available for us ophthalmologists, because Avastin and all other intravitreal injections are given that way. A chemical brow lift is when you inject into the orbicularis oculi muscle on the lateral half of the eyebrow. The reason for this is that when you inject into these points in the orbicularis function is closure, closing the eyelid, bringing the eyebrow down. By injecting in these areas of the orbital and the preseptal portion of the orbicularis, you are paralyzing those portions of orbicularis. So instead of bringing the eyebrow down now, it does not act, and the action of the frontalis there is unopposed. As a result, the eyebrow moves up. But it has to be done in a very effective and subtle way, such that only the tail of the eyebrow goes up, and you do not want the patient to have fully surprised eye look, so the medial part of the eyebrow is not treated. I think that covers our theoretical part. We were supposed to also have a keynote address by Dr. Gangadhar Sundar, but he's not here. So we'll now move on to the live demo injections. We'll start with the blepharospasm patient. We'll also be demonstrating how to, doing a live demo of the reconstitution. It's 3:15, we have until 3:55, so that gives us about 40 minutes or so, which is, I think, good enough. So traveling, if you're traveling with the Botox, with the botulinum toxin, now you'll see that most of us, even though we are, using Xeomin, our natural, what we end up saying is most often Botox. It's just that it's not the molecule. We're not referring to the brand, but the molecule. When you move around with Botox or the botulinum toxin, it's preferred to use a thermocol box with the ice packs within, which keeps the temperature under 8 degrees. Anything above that tends to affect the effectiveness of the molecule. Now, our patients here have given full consent for treatment and video recording and demonstration. So, and we have applied the Prolox nearly 40-45 minutes before the before injecting now. So hopefully they would have been anesthetized by then. While we set up, if there are any other further questions that we can, and I'll be happy to answer them. Yeah, so those were like I mentioned, those were the Allergan instructional videos. Uh, the rule for injecting where you want to inject more lies in for the sake of the forehead, because in the forehead you want them to be in the same line, and also every set of horizontal fibers of the frontalis you want to treat. You do not want to treat one area here at this level and one area over here. So now when the patient tries to frown, you would see a focal area of frowning or wrinkling happening, and the other areas would be untreated. Whereas here, there is no other muscle in that area. The only muscle here directly over the bone is orbicularis oculi. So that's not as much of a hard and fast rule in treating this as much as it is in the forehead, because you want to make sure all the points that you treat are on the same line horizontally. Yeah. We're all set. So putting in higher concentration is that you have to inject less amount. So if your 0.1 cc has 2.5 units and you want to inject 5 units, you would have to inject 0.2. But if the reconstituted solution is 5 units per 0.1 ml, then you can inject only 1. Like she mentioned, a lot of pediatricians, neurologists, orthopedicians like higher dosage when they deal with patients with cerebral palsy, when they have to inject into the joints that have developed flexure deformity. So there they would they end up using 200 units at one go. So they give very concentrated Botox. Typically I prefer 2.5 units per 1.1 ml. If the camera can focus over there, he says he can zoom in. They had a similar session in the morning. Yeah, so फिर आप उसको इधर लाएं. The marker pen, any marker. I think the most common that all of us use is the one with the viscoat and the Alcon thing, the ruler.
The
that comes.
OHP maybe you can avoid because then you're wiping it off vigorously, which you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So surgical markers
Those are
they
good.
come off with just, they just come off with a little saline. I think just the box at least and what's in it she can start.
This is 100 units Xeomin. So we'll be reconstituting it with 4 ml of normal saline to obtain a concentration of 2.5 units per 0.1 ml. Is it?
Yeah. Also, different brands, say for example, Alizure or Dysport, have different units for measurement. The units that we use typically when we talk about Botox is one Botox unit, which scientifically is the amount of Botox that is required to kill 50% of the mice when injected intraperitoneally. 1 unit of Botox does not necessarily equal to 1 unit of other brands. Luckily for us though, when we talk about Xeomin, the convertibility of 1 unit of Xeomin is almost equal to 1 unit of Botox. So for these two brands, we can talk about units interchangeably, not the case for other brands of botulinum toxin.
So Xeomin is available as a lyophilized powder, as you can see. You can see those granules inside. Okay.
So just one tip also, the saline, what Shriti says is if you have cold saline, that's great. But even if you use normal saline, room temperature is fine. Again, that doesn't affect the efficacy, so don't worry about the saline. Just it should be a new vial. A new saline vial.
Okay. This is normal saline, 0.9% preservative-free normal saline that I'll be using. So I'll take 4 ml of the normal saline.
So previously they used to use distilled water, but then what the consensus said was that we started way back when we started in 2005, we actually used to use distilled water. And they found that the pain factor was slightly more with distilled water versus saline. So now everyone's shifted to saline. Not really, but it's hard. It's not much. It doesn't cost anything. So if you're getting it cost-wise, like in your private sector, it doesn't really matter. The vials are hardly cost 10 rupees. So. Or you can just, the vials are better than getting the big bottle. That's a waste. These just work because you're asking in terms of cost, right? It doesn't matter much. So if you aspirate, don't go bang 4 ml. Do like 4 and maybe 1 thread in between because the hub is going to have that little wastage. So what my dermatologist said is they in fact take 4.1 because they said that that little minute dilution doesn't matter, but there's no wastage because every time you're plunging a syringe aspirating, that much of your little bit product is getting a little wasted. And long run, every time you're injecting one vial, you don't want to waste 2 units, 3 units.
So this is 4 ml of normal saline. So as I mentioned in my video, we just have to prick and just leave it.
Plunger दिखाई ये कैसे ये इसको zoom out कीजिए जरा. No, so no, you don't move.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
so
these sides, yeah, you can do that also.
yeah, you can do that, but we are anyways not pushing it. So that much force is not being applied on the molecule. So I don't think.
Akshay just mentioned why, just I think I probably missed that little bit, that you don't want it to be a jet because it can, affect the molecule. Yeah. And actually, when you're starting, the company people are really good. They come, they help you, they can reconstitute it till you get confidence to do it on your own. They're very good, the Allergan people, they're more than happy to come and help you set it up.
We have to swirl it. Okay, the Xeomine guy, he mentioned that Xeomine, because it's a powdered form, you can just shake it a little. Shake it, I mean not like shake it, but just tilt it a little. So that all the powder that is attached, on the sides of the vial also gets mixed with the normal saline.
The other advantage of Xeomine is that it does not, once reconstituted, it does not need storage at 4 to 8 degrees temperature. The margin of storage is up to 24 degrees, which means especially in winters, you can keep it at room temperature in at least in North India. And also if you travel to different parts of the city or country, traveling with injecting, then Xeomine is a good option because then you can.
So we are using a 1 ml syringe. You can see the you can see the markings at 0.1 ml markings.
Yeah, these are easily available to tuberculin syringes. You just get a pack of like 100, which works out quite cost effective.
The Xeomine is ready for use, so we can load it into the syringes and keep it ready for injection.
So when we are now injecting the blepharospasm patient, Dr. Sweetie, would you be injecting 17.5 on either sides? Yeah. So the there is, again, like I said, there is no hard and fixed formula for how many units you have to inject. Depending on the clinical response that you see the first time, you may want to hike up or reduce. The minimum dosage that we start off with when we treat benign essential blepharospasm is 35 units, which divided across both sides would mean 17.5, 17.5. Now 17.5 units with each unit having 0.1 cc, which 0.1 cc having 2.5 units. So you would need 0.7 cc of the solution that would contain 17.5 units. So we take 0.7 and 0.7 in 2 separate syringes. So each syringe would have 17.5 units and then we inject. For her, you can see that right now we've applied the Prilox. The Prilox can appear like a shiny little surface thing over the surface once it dries, and then you would see. She would explain the sites that we would be injecting in.
Marker.
Have to hurry.
Hello. So this is a patient of blepharospasm, which has features of Meeks syndrome as well. So the spasm are involving the lower part of the face also. At present, I'm thinking you can't see the spasm, periocular spasm so much. If you want to, if you want to initiate a episode of spasm, you can ask the patient to squeeze her eyes tightly. माजी थोड़ा सा जोर से खींचिए आँख को जोर से खींचिए बंद करिए हाँ आँख को बंद करिए जोर से टाइट अब खोलिए
Yes, so what she's saying is that her ocular spasm comes a little less, the lucid interval is more. She doesn't have the spasm as much,
So-
and then it comes in between, and then she has it till half her face. But we're just going to do the ocular. So I think that even when we start out, if you're not. So even if you start out and you're not comfortable with initially doing the mid or the low face, that's fine. Even initially when I started, I was not very comfortable doing those points. So just start it till you get the feel of injecting into the skin.
So I'll be marking the points where we'll be injecting. So as Dr. Akshay mentioned,
Take it down. I can't see. Tilt the face down. You'll have to come in front.
so we'll be injecting at 2 points. The preceptor, माजी नीचे देखिए, नीचे देखिए, हाँ, ऐसे रखिए, नीचे देखिए, हाँ. The two points in the upper lid will be the pretarsal orbicularis.
Light ray. Again, mine also. Actually, she's under the light also there.
ऊपर देखिए ना, ऊपर देखिए. So when we mark the lower lid, we should always remember that the point where we are going to inject should not be very close to the punctum, as injecting Botox just closer to the punctum can cause punctal eversion and the patient can have watering. There is another point which is along the lateral canthus, so it has to be inside the orbital rim, somewhere here. Then the 2 points in the brow area, the orbital part of the orbicularis. I'll demonstrate only one side, is it okay? Huh?
Oh, sorry.
I did. नीचे देखिए माँ जी. It's not very visible, but I did. So I'll be demonstrating it only on one side. We'll be injecting the other side later. So we have already applied Prilox for all the patients and kept almost like half an hour, more than half an hour back. So and we have cleaned the area with alcohol swab. So the alcohol has completely dried off, and now I'll be injecting.
So the reason
this
we
is-
dry off the alcohol is because the alcohol is supposed to denature the protein. So just, and our swabs are quite soaked and nicely, so just wait to dry.
6.
just sometimes when you inject, you can inject in very away, slightly away from the eyelid margin. Some of it can diffuse into the levator muscle, and you have ptosis. Now, the only one good thing that you can do when you have this is pray hard that it goes away soon, because there is no other medication that can help to resolve it. Apraclonidine eye drops were available. Cipla, the only company that used to manufacture it, no longer does so. But it is available in the US in some states as an over-the-counter drug. So if you have a heavy volume of injections, you can ask someone to get it from there. Apart from that, there is no other real effective treatment. Some again, some anti-glaucoma medication, especially Alphagan, can help in slight elevation of the eyelid, and that's all that we can give as a supportive measure for ptosis-induced, Botox-induced ptosis.
So this is a 1 unit vial. So normally the normally the dosage that we use is 2.5. I have 2.5 units at each injection site. So that will give you a dose of 17.5 units on one side. So a total of 35 units on including both the sides. So this is a vial which contains 0.7 units, 0.7 ml of Botox, which comes out to be 17.5 units. So I'll be injecting the upper lid first. Maji, thoda niche dekhiye. So you should not go very close to the lid margin, as it's a pre-tarsal part of the orbicularis that I'll be injecting. So when we inject, we go in the subcutaneous plane. क्या हो रहा है? आगे थोड़ा जूम आउट करिए थोड़ा सा, हाँ बस इससे थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। अजी नीचे देखिए थोड़ा सा। So I'm injecting the upper lid. Okay, so when I inject, I have to raise a bubble. So I go into the subcutaneous plane. दे दूँ? No, was not inside yet. आजी नीचे देखते रहिए। So if it bleeds, we can just dab with a cotton bud or a tissue. We don't have to rub it. आजी नीचे देखते रहिए।
So it looks like it's subcute, but actually the orbicularis is just below it. So you're in the orbicularis. Subcute will actually, you'll see like a little bit of the needle,
Yeah.
if you're very under the skin. So this you won't really see
it has to be a little more than subcutaneous. In the upper lid, when we give, you should not go beyond closer than 4 millimeter, because there's an vascular arcade which we can rupture and cause bruising in the upper lid. ऊपर देखिए माँ जी, अभी नीचे वाली पलक में देंगे। ऊपर देखते रहिए।
So small tip for beginners is that the lower eyelid doesn't matter, but in the upper eyelid, If you're injecting, inject away from the center point. So the medial one, your needle points towards the nose, and your lateral points towards the lateral part of the brow. So you're pretty sure you're not getting a product into the central sort of, 8 to 10 millimeters of the LPS part. So even just lower lid doesn't matter, but upper lid definitely keep your needle outwards so it doesn't diffuse.
So this is a point just inside the orbital rim. I'll be giving in the brow area. So here the skin is thicker, more thicker. So instead of going parallel, we have to go a little perpendicular. नीचे करिए माँ जी, थोड़ी नीचे करिए, थोड़ी नीचे करिए, हाँ जी. So we have to inject a little perpendicular. बस बस हो गया मुझे. बस बस.
So the amount of oozing or bleeding that you see is variable. Sometimes you may have an absolutely clean, without a single drop of blood. There are times you may have a little oozing that persists.
Okay, so
The similar procedure will be repeated for the other side. So we'll be demonstrating the hemifacial.
so you can see that actually you didn't get any blebs for the brow ones injections we've given, because those you go a little deeper. Otherwise, the rest of them, they look like, have been bitten by a mosquito. So that's exactly what you should aim for. So Akshay, you want to take your hemifacial spasm? Oh, okay. So shift to any questions in the meanwhile for Sweetie or
हाँ मैं
any-
नीचे
for the
मैं नीचे
spasms?
से लगाती हूँ माँ जी. उठ जाइए.
So the multiple pricks, your needle does get blunt. So we feel free to change it. Like I said, the hub gives a little wastage, which is fine. But you go ahead and change. After 2 or 3 pricks, I usually just change the needle. I don't continue to use the same needle. And the other reconstitution, which we didn't talk about, which I like doing for cosmetic patients, which is the insulin syringe. That needle is inbuilt, and it's a 30 gauge needle. Those syringes are really reasonable, and I've switched to doing all my cosmetic with those.
Hello.
And there's no wastage in the hub. There is no hub. It's a direct needle. So you can fill in multiple syringes and just keep injecting and discard. There's no worry about wastage. Insulin syringe. So the insulin syringe has a 40 marks. So when you reconstitute your, and that is 1 ml. So you're actually reconstituting directly into 40 units and just reading it off. So it's, that's what the dermats do. And I feel since the concentration is lesser, my cosmetic patients, I prefer those. Akshay, any points? वो lapel mic. Yeah.
Can we give the injection
Hello?
when there is spasm going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can give injections when the patient is having an episode of spasms. So if we see her, again, like was mentioned, a good way to elicit the spasm is asking her to close the eye. माँ जी आँख बंद कीजिए, जोर से, एकदम जोर से. And typically the patients have a history that at times of tension, anxiety or anger, they have, these spasms tend to be more prominent. So you can see the flickering happening. It's not very prominent, but the muscles being involved here are that we'll be injecting would be the same 2 points. I give at 3 points, like I mentioned earlier, there is no fixed area or absolute hard and fast rules as to where to inject and how much. So in the eyebrow area, I like to inject at 3 points. The upper lid also at 3. 2 on the lower lid, 1 at the lateral edge. For her, Maji, जोर से बंद कीजिए आँख, tight or tight. Yeah. So there is a little bit of spasm happening here, which is the levator labii superioris. So I'll be injecting a little bit over here. and here the orbicularis oris. So these 2 points are the additional points in addition to the periocular area. So since we've already cleaned, you can see that there is 0.7 cc. So I again, like she did, Dr. Sweetie did, inject in the eyelid first. So I would be injecting at 3 points: the medial end, the central, and the lateral. I'll show. So while it is recommended that you should not be subcutaneous and be intramuscular, given the thickness of the eyelid skin, it's very likely that you may actually end up going a little superficial. The effectiveness doesn't get compromised when you are either subcutaneous or in the orbicular pretarsal orbicularis. So you go in and raise a small little bleb there. एक second में, इतना जोर से मत बंद कीजिए. Yeah, you can see the bleb being raised and you come out. थोड़ा नीचे कीजिए. Again, just gently stretch the skin laterally. Raise a small bleb. You definitely can tell that this point was subcutaneous and not in the muscle of the into the orbicularis there.
How much did you give in the center, Akshay? Did you?
The central was half of what I gave at the
yeah,
first point,
exactly.
because you don't want, if you give too much there, then you may have lid retraction because the eyelid, the orbicularis at the center is then compromised. So half of what you would inject at the first 2 points, which is, so at the first area I've given almost 2 units, so it's almost a unit, that only a unit that I've injected centrally. So literature says that FDA approval for for orbicular, for BEB and HFS includes only the eyebrow and septal sites. It doesn't include pretarsal site. It includes only 2 pretarsal sites and none on the lower lid. What we are showing is a modified technique which we've seen to work in our hands and which is commonly accepted amongst oculoplastic surgeons.
Okay, so are there in your practice how much are the chances of ptosis if you give the center injections?
In pretarsal injection, I haven't come across many cases in the pretarsal area.
Okay.
Dr. Savri?
You are giving the half of the doses at the center?
At the center, just
Okay.
1 unit.
Okay.
I've had one case of ptosis, but that was not for the spasm. It was for another case. But I've got patients who've got ptosis, and you just have to give them a lot of love, care, explanation, and genuinely not point fingers at any of your colleagues because it could happen to any of us.
Right. So now I come to the lower lid. You just gently pull the lid down because patients mostly are keeping their eyes closed. Here it doesn't matter how close or away you are from the margin. The medial point is just slightly away from where the punctum would be. Go in again and raise a small little bleb. Come down again here laterally. Raise that little bleb. Here the lateral point is again, you can palpate the rim and then just at the rim go in and inject a little bit to raise the bleb. 2 points on the upper eyebrow. Feel the orbital rim and visually see that the eyebrow, just see that you're injecting just above the eyebrow, because that is where the 1.5 centimeter above the eyebrow or the orbital rim is the maximum extent of the orbicularis. Anything above that is the frontalis muscle. So you can pinch. Okay, then I'll use these 2 fingers to pinch and inject a little. The same thing done laterally here. Pinch, inject a little. What I have noticed is that older the patients, the more loose the skin and the more the chance of the eyebrow injection trickling down into the preseptal space and affecting the eyebrow. Like I said, there are two other points that I would like to inject. These are namely so the landmark here, I do not, typically what is said is that when you are injecting the face, to avoid affecting muscles of facial expression, you draw an imaginary line that connects the lateral angle of the mouth to the tragus. Some people say you can even draw, who are even more conservative would be from the lateral part of the ala of the nose to the tragus and just stay above that, don't come below that, because anything done on one side will adversely affect the expression of the patient or even actions like chewing and smiling. So here you can see that the focus of the spasm is right here. So this is, I have about 5 units, a little less than 0.2 cc. So about 4 units in the syringe. So I'm going to equally distribute it at these 2 points. This is 1 point. Again, you want to go not in the muscle and not hit the bone. And finally here you have a lot of muscle over here, so you can pinch it up here, go in and inject. So that would be the injections for hemifacial spasm. While we set up the next patient.
Hello. So we have with us Mr. Birinder, who's kindly agreed to do the cosmetic part of it. He's a 40-year-old gentleman, though he doesn't look 40, I told him. So that's pretty good. So just quickly, I'm going to go through some markings so it makes it easier. So a male face is slightly different from, in the sense when you're injecting some, just the forehead lines are quite different. The crow's feet and the glabellas are not so different. So just to start with very simply, first when you want a person who's coming cosmetic, start observing them when they are talking, and then you have to see them. So this is him in his resting position. Take a photograph. Birinder ji, smile kijiye. हाँ, अभी थोड़ा जोर से smile कीजिए. Like this is an exaggerated, so it allows you to actually, और थोड़ा smile कीजिए एकदम. हाँ, so it shows he's got very nice crow's feet in the sense you can mark them out. Basically, he's got this zone, which is actually, all crow's feet here. Then ask him to frown. Yeah, ऐसे कीजिए. हाँ. So here, now this is a really good way, and you can do it on each other when we were learning. So a corrugator, as you learned, is a muscle. So this is the beginning. Frown कीजिए. हाँ, कीजिए और जोर से. हाँ. Excellent. He's got very thick corrugators. So this is your beginning of your corrugator, and this is what we call the tail. So men have slightly more squarish corrugators, where women will have slightly more tapering ones. So this is his corrugator. If you see, frown कीजिए, frown कीजिए, ऐसे कीजिए, और हाँ. So you can, और कीजिए, yeah. So you can see roughly marked it out. So anything 1 centimeter above the frontalis muscle starts. So this is your bulk of corrugators. Often you find that people will actually come with the corrugators looking thick and hypertrophic. In females, one small point is, abhi relax kijiye. Please check the level of the brow. Sometimes one brow is slightly higher than the other very often. If you inject the same amount, then you may again continue to have the asymmetry. So if you're doing it, you would like to try and correct the symmetry, so you can inject a little more product in one versus a little lesser in the eye, which is, lower. So that's your process, that's your corrugator. वापस कीजिए इसे और नाक को भी. हाँ, your procerus is here, okay? So it's a slightly more deep muscle. So this constitutes your entire glabellar area, which gives you your frown line. So can you only inject this? I mean, you can, but it's not really going to give the actual effect. So you have to put a point here in the procerus area. Okay, it is a slightly more deep muscle. Your corrugators, we are going to be injecting. You could give only 1 point here if it was a small corrugator, but since his is extending, you're going to give 1 point here also. So usually approximately anywhere between 8 to 10, 12 units is more than enough. I don't like to have them stone faced. I think a little bit of a flicker of a movement is nice. I mean, even when sometimes you get all, like TV or artists, you want them to have a little bit of expression because they want that. Second, here, anything this center point is a no injecting zone for us right now. And lateral 1/3, so maybe just above little lateral, not going to inject here. Okay, because that's what happens, your brow will just come down. Frontalis starts here, abhi upar kijiye. He has lovely frontalis. So you see a lot of patterns, but you don't really need to study all the patterns. Kijiye wapas. So he's got this double, upar kijiye. He's got these double lines, So we are going to stay and inject in this center area, which is there, and not go beyond this lateral portion. You can give a point here, it's not to worry, but don't go too low again. And there are different ways of injecting. I like to give about 2 to 2.5. So suppose his lines were like more V-shaped, which is we see in men. So common thing we see in men is upar dikiye, upar, nahi, upar aise, upar dikiye. Haan. So you see here 2 continuous lines, 2 to 3, or you will see one in men with a gap. So there are 2 like squarish ones, or you will see V's. In women, you will see they are slightly lighter and not as prominent, So we'll start with just the injecting the glabella. Okay, coming to crow's feet, simple, very forgiving muscle, extremely dramatic effect for your patients. So they're really happy. So it's something you can definitely start with and not have to worry about. Zara hasya Virender ji, smile kijiye, ekdam jor se. So what points Akshay told? So you feel for the orbital rim and you mark your points. 3 points. Smile kijiye, smile ekdam smile kijiye. So what I like to do is go into the point which is the deepest crease and then spread your product out on the other 2 sides. So someone asked how much distance. So there's nothing like that, but you can keep a little distance between the creases. Sometimes some people have one coming very low down. Smile kijiye jor se. Ekdam achhe se smile kijiye. Or see, he has one coming here. So if you want, you can go a little lower and that will take care of this product line also. So we'll start with the crow's feet. Just can I wipe some? I know, but ये वो marking किया ना? नहीं, give me that. So I'm using an alcohol swab and I'm going to just dry it out after that. I'm just breaking on the markings. Because I'm just taking off the main markings now, because after I give the product, I don't want to really vigorously, rub anything off. So just take care about that. Sorry, jal nahi raha hai na? Thank you. Okay. So we are starting the crow's feet. So I'll just now make just the simple points. Smile kijiye, ekdam jor se, Virender ji. Haan, ja. Okay. So feel for the orbital rim. This is all smile karte rahiye, smile karte. This is his deepest crease. So I'm giving 1 point here. Can you see? And I'm giving 1 point here. And maybe the other one's going quite close to the eyebrow. So let's see whether we may need to give him only 2 points. If you go close to the eyebrow, he's going to get a brow lift. So you don't want to go very close to the brow. I don't think he needs a brow lift. So again, we have the same reconstitution. We're just repeating it. It's 0.1 ml, has 2.5 units, which is good enough for him. So we'll be starting with that. Okay. So again, if you want, you can, you're not worried about causing any ptosis. So support. I'm not wearing gloves. Mera size hai kya? Okay. Yeah, I don't wear gloves even in the clinic. So not probably the best idea, but okay. So you go, smile kijiye aur. So keep the person animated. Okay, so that's the first point. 0.1 ml. You got a nice bleb there. Smile कीजिए और कीजिए और कीजिए. नहीं, एकदम जोर से कीजिए. Yeah. Then I'm going to give one more point here. Okay. So he's given 2 points. I don't think I need to go anything higher. So I'm not going to give him any more for the crow speed. So we've used points. So that's about 5 units we've used. Now we'll be coming to the glabella area. So glabella area, अभी ऐसे गुस्सा करते हैं वैसे कीजिए. Yeah, but so you don't want to like wipe this, just dab it. Okay, हाँ, और कीजिए. So this is your corrugator beginning, and this is the end. So like Akshay said, that actually is a good technique. You know, don't like get stressed about it when you're giving it initially. So you just go a little into the thing. You support it. So my 2 fingers are showing the beginning and the end of the muscle, and I'm going to go a little parallelly into the muscle, and then I'm going to go straight. It's a little deeper muscle. You don't want to go on the periosteum, and you inject. Thoda pain hoega. So this, the patients usually feel the product and then come out. ठीक है? वापस कीजिए, या कीजिए वापस, कीजिए, yeah. So you can see that's the basic, yeah. So again the end here. So if you only give it, you know, he'll have this movement. So you don't want to do that. One sec, we just wait. Just come and press this now. Just keep it pressed. Yeah. So we'll give Virender ji ek thoda. So especially in ladies, if you don't inject this portion, then that movement bunches up the brow. So you don't want to leave that tail part of the corrugator. So support it, put your thumb below the brow, I mean just at the orbital rim, and then again go parallelly, and then straighten, inject, and give, and down. He's bleeding. Is he okay? They usually don't ooze so much. So we've given 2 points of the corrugators here. We've given one more, 2 points we'll be giving him here. And now you come to the procerus. You have another muscle called the nasalis. Nasalis is around here. It's what we call the bunny lines. You know, they're here and here. So this muscle, we are not going to be demonstrating, but you will have people. Just ekdam smile kijiye, aise naam aise kijiye. I don't think he has. Yeah. I'll show it later. I have very prominent brow line. So this is the nasalis. Okay, I keep, Dr. Milind threatens to inject me every time. So this is something that a lot of women do ask for because they don't like that scrunched up appearance. Okay, yeah. हाँ, अभी frown, thanks Nitesh. अभी वापस वैसे कीजिए, yeah. So you can see here now we've given these 2 points. This is the procerus. So, okay, the procerus is again not just subacute. You're going to go in a little deep. Now my needle has become a little blunt, so I'm not very comfortable about that. But and then you inject. Ho gaya. Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the commonest sites we use for the glabella area. So this floor thick and it looks very good, and it really takes off, you know, sort of an angry or frowning expression. So now we'll be coming to the forehead lines. Just upar kijiye aapke, haan. So this is, yeah, we'll change the needle. So here I'm going to be giving him maybe like a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, in 2 rows. So you have to give it into the crease. So it will be, वापस ऊपर कीजिए अच्छे से, ऊपर कीजिए, ऊपर कीजिए. So this one small one he's getting, you can just leave alone. So 1, 2, you can even go here but not beyond, and okay, and maybe we can give one here. So see the pattern, you can even do this pattern. So it goes up, down, up, down. So usually here I prefer 2 units, quite honestly. I don't think 2.5 is really required. Even sometimes if people have 3 lines and not very prominent, you can go 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit. So you'll figure that out as you do it. Yeah. So we've changed the needle. Thanks. ओके ऊपर देख ऊपर नहीं ऊपर कीजिए अभी हाँ ऐसे ऊपर रिलैक्स अच्छा ऊपर कीजिए अभी हाँ थैंक यू ऊपर की वेरी गुड परफेक्ट परफेक्ट ओके सो अगेन ओके यू आर गोइंग टू गो योर press go in that's it okay and we'll be giving one here. And for this, I'm giving one here. I'm giving one center point here. I'm not going to be giving him 2.5 here, I'm just going to give a little bit lesser. You could actually give even one here because he's got prominent creases, so I'm just going to give him one more here. That's it. So those are your forehead lines. So this is sort of the kind of cosmetic things you do. So if we have any questions for any of us, we'll be happy to just finish injecting him.
Yeah, just a couple of other things. If you've noticed, she's injecting around the area of the lines. You really don't need to go into the actual crease to for it to be effective. Even if you do, it doesn't. It works. Even if you don't, if you're just
just give me
around
some more product.
the actual crease or the wrinkle, it would still be effective. There is something known as a zone of diffusion that we should know about. In the frontalis and in the periocular muscles, the zone of diffusion is about 0.6 millimeter
Huh.
in radius, which means it's about 1.2 centimeter diameter. So in any point that you inject, 0.6 mm on every side, it is going to be, the Botox is going to spread, and that much area would be affected. So the minimum gap that you give between 2 points of injection should take into consideration the zone of diffusion there and then inject.
Yeah, just finish it so we can take questions for.
So if any questions that we have, she's nearly done. Do we have any Botox to offer the audience?
I think they'd more be interested in free vials.
Yeah. So onset of action takes about 3 to 4 days, at least 5 days. Peak of action you would see by 2 to 3 weeks, and it stays the peak of action. So you see the effect starting in about the 5th or 6th day. It peak reaches about 2 to 3 weeks, and then there's a plateau till the end of the 3rd month, by when you see a slight decrease in the effectiveness. Typically, on an average, by the end of the 4th month, the effect has completely worn off.
Sorry. Just come and give the crow's feet.
Done?
Yeah, no crow's feet, that's it.
Crow's feet on this side. All right. So, yes, ma'am.
Give them a mic.
Experience with Botox in children for blepharospasm. Okay, I haven't actually injected any child with blepharospasm in children. Savri, have you?
No.
Never. So even I have never seen a case of blepharospasm. Sometimes they do have abnormal facial tics, but which I would not pay too much attention and not treat.
Smile, Kiji, smile.
Some of them are just manifestations of other systemic conditions, or some psychological issues which they need attention for which they do that, and little counseling helps. But given that I have seen Botox being used in children for in the urinary bladder and for joints, I don't think as a molecule it has any different effect in children.
Smile.
And also it has a good safety profile in children. For squint also, yeah. It's been used for squint also. So the question was, how frequently is it advisable? Like say for spasms that we see, like I mentioned, towards the end of the 4th month, the effect completely wears off, by which the patient would also start getting the spasms again. So they themselves usually come in and at about 4 weeks, 4 months, asking for repeat injections. No, there are no systemic side effects of this molecule because it doesn't have a systemic absorption. It is only locally absorbed, and the lethal dose for botulinum toxin at any one point is 2,500 units. We are nowhere close to that much dosage. We are talking about 40, 50 units. So. For Botox in Epifora, for the benefit of the audience, the question is which patients would you choose to inject Botox for Epifora? Like the Botox, like the botulinum toxin affects the neuromuscular end plate and prevents neurotransmission there, thereby paralyzing the effect of that muscle. In the lacrimal gland as well, parasympathetic stimulation, the nerve fibers, if by injecting botulinum toxin into the lacrimal gland, can reduce secretion of the lacrimal gland as well. So there are some subset of patients which you can inject Botox into the lacrimal gland. Typically these patients are patients who have functional epiphora, which means that they have excess secretion, excess basal secretion of tears in the presence of a patent lacrimal system, or intractable epiphora because of an obstructed NLDO, which means there's a multiple failed PCR or multiple canalicular blocks or punctal atresia, or where there is no lacrimal drainage system. These are good candidates for that. There's also another theory that it's actually not the injection, but the needling that you're doing, which causes scarring and destruction of the secretory acini, which reduces the secretion. So I have a patient who's been taking injections for 21 years. He's the longest taking, I mean, he used to be taking it somewhere in Bangalore, and then he moved to Bombay in 2014. Since then, for the past 6 years, I have been injecting. He's been injecting for 14 years or 16 years before that. So, yeah. No local, except that he looks prettier now because of the repeated Botox. Dr. Savri, you want to? Sometimes you see that the duration between two injections seems to be keeping on reducing.
Yeah, so there is a known thing that you can get antibodies to the botulinum toxin. So when those patients develop antibodies, the duration is going to reduce. So you have to counsel them that they are those percentage of individuals who've developed antibodies, and especially for spasm patients, which we see happen more because the amount of product you're using is more. Then you have to, just think of either increasing a dose, but beyond a certain point you can't give. So like hemifacial, you can go up to 20, 25, you don't want to inject 35. And you have to tell them that the injections will come at a shorter duration. And if after a point it still doesn't, then they are those refractory cases which have developed antibodies. And for those who've left, thank you so much for attending this session. Yes, please.
Get in touch with me on email.
One of the complications written in box, it's central retinal artery occlusion. At which site, which is the most dangerous site of injection, can cause this complication? Fillers.
That's for fillers. Periocular Botox causing central retinal artery. I haven't. Oh, okay. So in squint, they may have gone too deep into the instead of giving into the muscle or the belly of the muscle or the insertion, they may have punctured the sclera and gone in and given. That could be the only thing. For squint, you give into the extraocular muscles. Yeah. So I mean, it may be a complication, but. Yeah. Yeah. So you like even for her, you identify the muscle which is contracting the most. The orbicularis oris, like the orbicularis oculi, is a circular muscle, and the intensity of contraction are highest in the muscles closest to the lid margin. Same is the case for the eye. So as long as you are about 0.5 to 1 centimeter away from the oral mucocutaneous junction, it does not tend to affect the smile or your chewing that frequently. But you don't want to be injecting very superficial. The more superficial you are, the more it spreads. So into the muscle, focused small aliquots can be given. Yeah. Right. So that may not necessarily be hemifacial spasm. That could also be an aberrant regeneration following a facial palsy. Typically, a lot pulling off the angle of the mouth, even it can be associated. I mean, it's often called hemifacial spasm, but it's actually aberrant renovation following facial palsy, which also is treated in the same way. So in those patients, you really have to isolate which muscle is getting spasm. You may take the help of an electrophysiologist and do an EMG to figure out which exactly are the hyperactive muscles and then inject. So EMG guided Botox is also being done, so that can be tried. 2.5 to 5 units. For the skin, like we did, Prilox. In the lacrimal gland, only Paracane is enough. But you have to be very careful because the levator muscle is right there between the orbital and the palpebral lobe of the lacrimal gland. So if you go anywhere deep, you will not only have ptosis, you will also have lateral rectus palsy and diplopia. So in the patient who just had watering, now will have double vision and watering. So thank you so much for joining us.